Hello, and thank you so much for joining me today for Kineo Office Hours. Today what we're talking about is one of the several performance management tools. We're talking about goals. I've recently been researching this for a specific client of ours because they're looking to implement this in their systems, or they're kind of testing it out to see if it's something they would like to implement. And I realized that I needed to learn a little bit more about it before I could teach them more about it. And then as I learned about it, I wanted to share it with everyone. So let's talk a little bit about goals. First things first, a little bit about myself. My name is Taylor Craig, and I'm one of our platforms consultants here at Kineo. We have recently hired on a new platforms consultant, and I'm very excited to introduce you guys to Alex Carrick. He will be tag teaming this information, these little sessions with me over the next couple of months, and we're so excited to have him on board. So I can't wait for you guys to get the chance to meet him as well. So today let's talk a little bit about performance management. So there's several different tools inside of Totara that actually kind of work in conjunction. One of those tools is going to be goals. The other ones are going to be appraisals, 360 feedback. Also, you can kind of tie in learning plans into this whole equation, and you can even add in objectives, which are part of learning plans. So there's lots of different ways that you can actually track the performance management of your learners. Now, when we get into the area of performance management inside of Totara, keep in mind that these types of things are intended to be conversations between a learner or an employee and their staff manager. So we're utilizing the roles of learner and staff manager, but you'll also see me later today when we're looking through this, you'll also see me look at the role of authenticated user, and I'll explain why we're looking at that as well. So what we're going to do today, we're going to take a look at goals specifically. That's what we're focusing on today. We're going to look at it from a learner, manager, and administrator view. And then we're going to talk about what needs to be done administratively in order to utilize goals. So first things first, you have to have a goal scale. So how are we rating these goals? Are we rating it by actually giving it a number? Are we rating it by just saying that it's in progress? How are we scaling this goal progress? Then you have to set up your goal hierarchy. So you've seen other hierarchies in the system. So positions, organizations, you've seen those hierarchies. Also, I think we've talked about competency hierarchies before. So this is similar to that, but it is the goal hierarchy. We'll also talk about role permissions. That's when we kind of get into talking about authenticated user. And one thing to kind of be aware of if you go to set this up on your site, core, it allows everyone to do everything, and that doesn't exactly make the most sense when we're talking about how these goals work. We'll also talk about how many different places that goals can be assigned. They can be assigned in a couple of different places. And then we'll also see how it works with appraisals. So goals will work tied in with an appraisal, and we'll take a look at all of that. So let me pull this over here and close that out. Let's look at this from a learner's viewpoint first. All right. We're just going to go back out to the home page. So I am logged in as George Wood. He is a learner in the system, and he has been talking with his manager. They've been discussing, these are the things that we'd like you to do. So together, they're going to go to log in and go to the Performance tab, and then under the Performance tab, they're going to see Goals. If you're not seeing goals underneath the Performance tab, you may need to enable goals on your site. The first place to look is going to be under Site Administration Advanced Features. I like to do a Control F for Control Find, type in the word goals, make sure that it is visible. If you're still not seeing it, go look at your main menu items underneath Appearance. You may have hidden it because it might not have been needed during implementation. So it may have been completely turned off where it didn't accidentally appear. So go look there as well so that you can be sure and find that. So looking at this from George's perspective, and remember, he's a learner in the system. He's also a manager, but he's also learning in the system as well. So he sees at the top company goals. So he sees increased customer loyalty, customer satisfaction, greet customers with a smile, be helpful while the customer is in the store, follow up with the customer. You'll see that the status for these, all of them, it's just been assigned. Nobody has marked him as that he has done it. You'll notice that he can't do anything with that status. That goes back to the role permissions that I talked about earlier. And then you'll also see how this goal was assigned to him. So these company goals were assigned to him by an audience. So he's a member of the audience, Smith & Jones, and so this was assigned to everyone. Now he can go in and he can take a look at each of these individually. In here he can get a description of what exactly that goal is. You'll see here that we can also add in types. So for those of you who are familiar with types, and I believe I've talked about position and organization types, but basically it's additional descriptors concerning how to do increasing customer loyalty. You can also add those additional descriptors in for reporting purposes so that you can narrow and make your reports more and more granular if need be. Mine doesn't have any types, but the goal scale, that's going to be how it's going to be rated. And then you'll see here, he also sees the goal assignments, and he sees who all has been assigned to this this particular goal. So let's go back to the goals screen because I want to show you something else. He also has personal goals. So in here you'll see that he was assigned a personal goal by his manager. His manager is Sharon Cunningham. She's normally who we log in as, but today we're logging in as one of her direct reports. And she has said that she would like him to obtain 3 new leads by April 30th of 2018. So he can click on this and see if she's given him any more details. So any of the additional details that she maybe has provided, she's provided that here. Now he can also add in additional goals for himself. So he has added one in here called selling skills. And he says, I would like to improve my selling skills. He can edit this if he would like to. And then he can also change the value. So he can say that it was assigned, it's in progress, or that he feels like he has completed this. So he can come in here and make that change as well himself, but only on the things that are for himself. Okay, so if we add in another goal, check in with 3 existing customers. Okay, he can put a goal scale to that. He can also give himself a due date. This one we're calling it a quarterly goal, so we're just going to go to the end of the first quarter and save our changes. So now he sees that this has been assigned to him and that he did it himself. He does have the ability to edit and delete. You'll see here that he sees some actions for the manager, but he can't actually do anything with those. Okay, so then he can say, you know what, I have done this, so I'm going to say that I have completed this goal. Okay, so looking at this from the manager's perspective, how do we see the goals that are assigned to our people? So the way a manager does that, they're going to go to the Team tab. They'll see their direct reports, and those who are their direct reports, they will be able to see all of this information. Now, you may be allowing your staff managers to see direct and indirect reports. If it is an indirect report, they won't be able to see that person's goals unless you give them the permission to do that. In this case, these are Sharon's direct reports, so she's able to see all of the information about them. So she can click on goals, and she can come in here, and she is who has the ability to manage the status of the goals that are company goals that were assigned. So these are actually just only managed by the manager. Now, by default, the learner can manage this as well, and I'll show you where to turn that off so that the learner is not the one making this choice about themselves. So we have increasing customer loyalty. So we can say, yep, you're in progress on that. In progress. You have done this. I've seen you do this. And I've seen you do this. So she can go in and she can rate this information. One thing to be aware of is that it does kind of happen in real time. So as she does that, if he refreshes, he does see those changes take place immediately on his end, just so you're aware. Okay. Now, one thing that she can do, so this is showing her the goal frameworks that are available. She can also come in and she can add company goals if there are some to choose from. So in my case, I've assigned via audience all of the different goals that the company has set for all employees. But if there were additional ones that maybe weren't assigned via the audience, and I'll show you what that looks like from the admin's view in a moment, then Sharon could come in here and she could select any of these additional ones. Now, if she selects one that's already there, you'll see that this was assigned by the audience and then also by Sharon. So it's not going to give you more than one chance to set this goal status. She can then remove herself from that, seeing that, oh, that was already added. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. She can also add in personal goals for him. So you'll see here she's already done this, and then she can come in and she can come back and rate him as completed on that. And then if he refreshes, he sees that change too, that he has completed that. So these goals are actual goals that are taking place individually between the learner and their staff manager. And they're actually talking about this content and going in and adding that information in. Now, goals are not tied to courses. So if you're looking for something that is more so tied to courses, then you probably need to look in the way of competencies, because competencies give you a little bit extra in that you are able to kind of add in courses that tie to those competencies. So going back out, now let's take a look as an administrator. So now I am in as an administrator. So a couple things that you have to do and things to think about before setting up goals. So the first one is going to be underneath users, permissions, and define roles. Like I said, by default, what's going to happen is if you come in here and you set up all the stuff for goals, you're going to look at it as a learner and you're going to look at it as manager, and the learner is going to have way too much permission to do stuff. So, and when I'm saying learner, I really mean authenticated user, because these are performance management and they're at the system level. So your authenticated user, this is a person that just has access to the site. They have a username, they have a password, not necessarily enrolled in anything. You're not really considered a learner until you're enrolled in learning. So authenticated user, this is a person who has access to everything at the system level that is available to people to participate in, not like site administrative stuff. So what we're going to do, we're going to go in, we're going to edit this role. And we are going to come down and we're going to filter by goals. Now, by default, assign company goals is checked, and updating or view goal scales, there's another one. There's a couple of these that are by default checked. I can't remember off the top of my head which ones they were because I undid them. But one thing for sure I know is the updating goal scales. We unchecked that. We only want them to be able to manage their personal goals. We don't want them to be able to manage their company goals. So I did uncheck this one. Since I'm just an authenticated user, this one does not need to be checked. If you want somebody to be able to manage team members' company goals, that's in the staff manager role. And in the staff manager role, that box is checked, and that's what we want. So if you don't want the staff manager to be able to do that, you can uncheck that. So these are just something to keep in mind, okay? So that's something to be aware of. Now to take a look at goals and where you add them. First things first, make sure it's turned on. So underneath advanced features, and I'm going to do control find goals, and that's going to highlight it for me. Or at least it should. There it is. Enable goals. You want to make sure that this is set to show. So if you're still not seeing it after you set it to show, the next place to look is under appearance and main menu. And make sure that goals is turned on. Make sure it's visible. Okay. Now what you're going to do is go under hierarchies, goals, and the first thing that you have to do is go into manage goals. And the first thing you'll have to do is add a goal scale. There should be one already in there for you. I'm using the default one. Let's go take a look at what those options are. View, edit the scale values for this goal. And this one's using goal is complete, goal is in progress, and goal is assigned. And we have assigned as the default value. And then we have set it where goal is complete. That's considered complete, right? So that's something that you can do. You can update this. You can add additional stuff if you need to. Or you can create your very own scale. So it's totally up to you as far as how you are considering a goal to be complete. But that's where you would add that. Next, you want to add in a goal framework. So this is going to be kind of similar to your positions, organizations, and competencies. It's basically the bucket that holds your goals. Now, you may have multiple frameworks, but in this case, I only have one. And here I have increased customer loyalty, and then I have some additional things that are smaller objectives that have to be obtained or should be obtained as well, but it's not going to trigger the completion of this main goal. But you can assign each of these individually, or you can assign them as a whole. Okay, I've got increased customer satisfaction as well. We could put in additional ones. You can do this in bulk by setting bulk actions add. And you choose which one is your top category. And let's see. Follow up frequently. So on and so forth. So you can add those scales in. You can put a target date. Sorry, not scales. You can add in the additional goals that you want them to obtain. And then you can save those changes. So you can build that out. Okay. Now keep in mind, these are going to be company goals. They are not personal goals. So personal goals, those are going to be obtained or created by the user themselves or by that user's manager. So these are your overall company goals, and you can only create a framework for the company goals. Now, I was watching Wes Holden at TOTRA headquarters. I was watching him to just kind of get myself schooled on it. And one thing that he mentioned was he gets frequently asked, why would we want a administrator to be the one that comes in and does all of this? And his recommendation is to create an additional role called HR manager, goal manager, something along those lines, and just give that person the ability to manage the goals. So then that way you're just working, that one person is the person that's managing goals and doing all that good stuff, and the administrator doesn't have to do this as much. So that's just a recommendation coming all the way down from TOTRA HQ, and just wanted to make you aware as well in case you were interested. Okay. Now you can have additional types, meaning that you can put in additional descriptors about these. That is simply for reporting purposes. So it's not something that you're going to be able to go in and add as or let learners select. They can't select the type. And that was something that I was hoping they could do, but they unfortunately can't. So it is just a descriptor for your administrator or your goal manager, the person that's doing that, to be able to manage and filter reports by. Okay. Now let's look at the reports. Underneath goals, you do have reports. There are a couple. You've got a summary report and a status report. So if we look at our status report, here we're going to be able to see all of the different goal names and how that goal is progressing. You can filter by that information. You'll see that there's 650 records, so that's how it is determined. If I go back to the Reports tab, I can do a summary report for the framework. And this is just going to show me how many people have been assigned, how many people have done something, if they've been ranked as completed, if they're in progress, kind of where they are at that point. Okay, now where can you assign goals? A couple of different places. So you can assign it via positions and organizations, so you can do it there. So if I go into my position framework for Smith & Jones, I can come in here to my technician position, and whoops, I went one step too far. So I clicked on my technician. I can come in here and I can add goals. So I can choose to put increased customer satisfaction and assign to child positions. So it's going to assign it to everybody underneath the role that we're in or the position that we're in, or you can say ignore children. So you've got that option. So I can say follow up frequently, think of the customer first. And this is assigned at this level, which is the technician role. Okay. You can do the same in organizations. It's going to work exactly the same. And then you also have the ability to do it via audience. This is how I did it earlier via audience. I did it just for the Smith & Jones audience that I had. So underneath Smith & Jones, you should see goals apply in your audiences. So you can come in here and you can add those goals. This is where you would manage that. Okay, so that is going to be goals in a nutshell as far as how your goals work on their own. So let's talk a little bit quickly, and I apologize, this is a longer session than normal, but I do want to make sure that you know how it works all the way through the process. So let's see how this works with an appraisal. So you can tie goals into an appraisal. So first things first, let's look at it as an administrator so you can see how to add goals to an appraisal. So I'm just going to create an appraisal here real quick. So once you have added in your stages and all that good stuff, if you're interested in appraisals, I'm sure I've got a video out there. So inside of appraisals, there is a quote question type, essentially, where you can come in and you can manage goals. So you can say, I want to add in the goals. And then you can say, talk about your goals. Or given kind of instructions that you want to. So what you have the ability to do, you can say goal selection. So we've kind of talked about this with appraisals and objectives. So tying in objectives that are part of learning plans. We've talked about this in previous office hours where the learner can pull in any of the objectives that they've added in their learning plan. So in that case, this is very similar to that. So company goals and personal goals. So you'll see that we have the option for both here. And I can say I want to automatically add all of the company goals for the learner to review, and that's going to add all of the ones that are assigned to that person. Okay, so it's going to add all those in. Same for personal goals, so you can say automatically add those in. And then you can say add personal goal custom fields if you have any types. So that would be what that is. You can include the rating, which is going to be if it's been assigned, if it's in progress, or if it's complete. So that's going to be that rating. And then you can say multiple fields. In my example that I'm going to show here in just a minute, I am using this option. Basically what it's going to allow you to do, and I'm using my client's example, they use the SMART method. So specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound. So in this, they have to tell their manager what was specific about it, what was measurable, etc., and so on. So that's what I'm using. But you can also create new options if you want. And again, I kind of stole that from our client. Hopefully they don't mind. So we can say create new options, and we'll say, did you meet the goal? What could you have done better? So basically, you're asking them specific questions about that one goal. So you're asking them each individual specific questions. And you can save this for any additional questions that you have. And then you say who has the ability to do stuff. So the learner can answer it, they are required to answer it, and they can view other roles' answers, which would be helpful because they're probably going to want to see what their manager has to say. Same for the manager. You can do this with Manager's Manager, which allows for direct report, indirect report managers to come in and appraise as well, and then save those changes. Okay, so that is how I did this in the appraisal we're about to look at. So as a learner would come in and go to their latest appraisal. And I'm going to say continue, but typically it says start. But I've already looked at it as Greg, so that's how that works. So what he's going to see is let's go to the personal goals first. So for his personal goals, selling skills was one of them. And he says that he's in progress. At this point, when he's looking at it, he may have completed it. So if he feels like he's completed it, he can select completed. We're going to leave it in progress. And then he can answer these different questions. And I'm going to cheat and just throw in some text. But I'm sure that George, if he was real, would have great answers. Okay, you'll see here for his manager's answer, right now he sees not yet answered, not yet answered. It's because Sharon hasn't done it yet, but she would be expected to do the same thing and go in and say, okay, this is how I feel you did. Okay. You don't have to set it where the manager has to answer this question. That's the lovely thing about appraisals, is you don't have to set it where the manager has to say anything. You could actually give the manager a totally different question to follow up with the learner on that particular thing. So obtaining 3 leads, says he completed it. So, and that was one created by Sharon. So that's what we're seeing there for his personal goals. And we're going to jump over to his company goals. So increasing customer loyalty, did he do it? So he's filling out all that information. Now that's just how I have it set up. That's not how you have to set it up, but that is how I have it set up. So he's going to complete it. Whoops, he didn't submit anything. So he's just going to save his progress. But Sharon can come in and go to her team. There's also notifications that are tied into appraisals, so I don't have them turned on, but if you did really do this in real life, you would probably have notifications triggering, letting Sharon know, hey, George has done his appraisal, it's time for you to go look at that. There's lots of different notifications that go along with appraisals, and they do tie into the task block, letting people, learners, as well as staff managers, letting them know that there are actions that they need to do. So that's just something to be aware of. So she would go to George, hit appraisals. She sees the appraisal. She can go in, and then she can start it and do the same thing. So she sees her stuff, selling skills, and then she sees his answers as well. Okay. Now she's not seeing anything for him right now because he hasn't actually submitted it. He's just saved his progress at this time, but he hasn't submitted anything yet. So when he does submit it, then she would see his answers. Okay. So that is going to be how you utilize goals in conjunction with appraisals. Typically, that's going to be the main use for it. Another thing to look at if you're looking for something to allow a little more commenting in the system might be learning plans and objectives. And I think I have talked about those in the past. So let's just take one quick peek as an admin real quick. Make sure we've looked at all the reports. There is a goal status history report. We have not looked at that one. And in this particular case, it's just going to show all goals that were ever added on the site and who modified it and what has taken place. And of course, since it is an embedded report, you can always edit it, change your columns, change your filters, all that good stuff. So I am so sorry for taking up so much of your time today. I don't normally do that, but wanted to make sure that we covered all aspects of goals. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you guys and see if you guys have any questions for me. Thanks again for attending. So glad you were here.